Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
Well, welcome once again to the Maximize Business Value podcast. So this is a conversation that we hold for the many ways that a business owner can actually work to enhance the value or maximize the value of their company, and perhaps sometimes look for areas where your value is taken away, and what can we do about that? So today we're joined by one of the top voices, I think, in the country on one of the most puzzling, at least to me, aspects of business, and that's the people problem. And so welcome, Mark Mitford, CEO of HR Catalyst. Good to have you.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, looking forward to the conversation with you. And yeah, and I'm happy to, please, I'm sure you might have a couple of questions for me that I'm happy to share some insights, some insights with you, and we can go
Hey,
from there.
as long as the ticker's not running and the bills aren't running up, I'll take all the wisdom you can give me.
We're
So,
we're good, Dave. We've known each other for a few years, so no, this is I'll give you
yeah.
as much sage advice as I can for pro bono.
Okay, super, super. So, I guess right off the bat, I know that finally, after all these years, you've captured some of that wisdom in the form of a book. So, congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dave. It's been a great it's been one of those things. I think I've had it in the back of my mind kind of percolating for several years.
Mhm.
And given some of the experiences I've had, and especially dropping down into the middle market space and lower middle market space. So I thought maybe it would be helpful for people to share some of the things I've learned, lessons learned that went really well, and some of them are actually some things that kind of failed. So
Yeah,
it's so it's kind of a composite of those both of those things. So
that's
yeah, so with
wonderful.
that, that's kind of that was a little bit of the genesis of the book, probably starting 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. So what's the title of the book?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because it just is it's so brand spanking new that I still always have to remember what the title is. So it's People Are Your Profit. Transform your biggest expense into your biggest asset.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a momentous undertaking.
Yes, it
That is
is. Of
awesome.
course, the that second part is the subtitle, but it is
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, it is going to be brand spanking new here. It's going to launch on Amazon on April 30th.
Wow. So
So
it's fresh. Oh, wow.
yes,
So
yes, it is.
we can probably pre-order at this point, it sounds like.
I would hope so. We've got
Yeah.
a publisher in place, so that's way beyond my pay grade, Dave.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna
that's
stay the
yeah.
heck out of that lane.
Well, it's enough just to put together your thoughts to do a book. I've never done one. I have many friends that have, and I envy them that they've done that. And it may be something I do at some point. I don't know if anybody would be interested, but it'd be worth a shot, maybe.
Yeah, never say never.
But yeah, really, really. So, when we talk to the folks that follow this podcast, they're typically business owners, multi-generational. Some of them are brand new. They may be in their 20s and just launched a business, and the world is all in front of them. Everything is ready to roll. Some have had their business for years. Some it's generational. They may be the second or third generation to run a business. Others are like yourselves. Others may have come from the corporate world and kind of got maybe a little dissuaded that I don't want to finish my career there. And they've gone off and started their own business, or they've bought into a small, medium-sized business. So it's all over the gym when we think about the people that view these podcasts and that we hear from and that we work with at Mastery Partners, frankly. But people problems are almost universal. I mean, that is one of the things that always comes up. And when we talk to business owners, many times the two big drivers for evaluation of a business are profitability and growth. And I think that spans whatever kind of business. It could be a Fortune 500 business, or it could be, your corner store. But profitability and growth are both important, and both of those are wound around, I guess, the people issue
Mhm.
or problem
Right.
or opportunity,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it is it's very well, insightful comment on your part, of course, as a business former, business owner and helping business owners now. But yeah, it's I I guess I jokingly saying I've been doing HR work for over 30 years now, so I've been at it for a little bit. It doesn't matter, and I've worked at some iconic companies that are Ericsson, Texas Instruments, PepsiCo,
Wow.
and then I dropped down to the middle market world where I finished off my corporate life and headed up HR in a couple of ventures. And it's a I always jokingly say HR is not rocket science. A lot of it's common sense,
Hmm.
but as you know, sometimes business owners and leaders, they probably have a lot of common sense, but when it comes down to people, processes, and creating scalable systems within your people, a lot of them just they truly don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially in the world we live in now, because our client, our typical the clients we love to serve, 50 to about 250, 300 employees.
Right.
That's kind of our sweet spot. And in a lot of cases, our value proposition at HR Catalyst is really the common denominator is they typically don't have a person who is a HR director, VP of HR, who's actually trained in HR and formally learned HR practices. Um, and so a lot of times they don't have anybody who's got the infamous seat at the table
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the leadership team who's actually helping to drive a people strategy. And that's where we try to help clients, and that's where we fit into the mix on a fractionalized capacity.
Wow, that's what a tremendous value that brings because yeah, because when you're saying that, I'm envisioning if you're at a 50 to 250 size an organization that size, senior leadership really knows every employee. They've met every employee. They know them. They probably know a bit about them. Some they know very well. And sometimes that's a wonderful thing, first of all. I mean, I think that's what makes small business successful. But on the other hand, those are the things that probably in the back of your mind, you can't make hard HR decisions when you know everybody and you know their kids and
Right, right.
those are tough. That for me was very tough, and
Yeah,
that's
it's a great point. Yeah, when you bring that up, Dave, because in a lot of cases too, these are your in some cases, these are your friends.
yeah, yeah,
You know people from the local chamber or the Rotary Club, you know people from church. Your
sure.
kids go to school with these
That's where you
people.
find that's where you find your next employee is in those social networks. Yeah.
Right, right. And in some cases, you hate to say, but some cases they really aren't the right person. And a lot of what we know, in the ranks, right people, right seats.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
some cases, you have the seat identified, but you might have the wrong
yeah.
person in the seat.
Yeah, great
Um,
person may not equal right person.
right, exactly. And sometimes they have great skills,
Yeah,
but if you have a person who's, a good example was, yeah, that's it. It would be if you have a person who's in sales, who's really good at operations and is quite introverted and doesn't like to talk to people and doesn't like to go to networking events and meet and greet people and can't talk, can't do small talk well
yeah,
to actually build a little bit of a quick relationship. They're probably not going to be a really successful sales leader because you
right.
have to be able to talk to strangers, create a relationship very quickly, And so that would probably be a glaring example. Of course, there's hundreds of others I could
Yeah.
bore you with, but I won't. So
But so what's the structure of the book? What do you attack in the book, or how's it organized?
right. It really is organized very much. I would say it's almost like it's really topical by core HR functions,
Oh, okay.
such as really hiring and selection, one chapter, onboarding is another chapter, leadership and leadership development is one chapter, succession planning,
Hmm.
change
Often
management.
overlooked. So
Yes, exactly. It's a and I do a lot of work with leadership with a number of clients right now, and it's and I bring up the example a quick preview because I thought it was a funny example. It's
yeah,
almost like for those of us like ourselves, have had and for a lot of people out there who've had kids that are driving, learning how to drive. I say the correlation there is they've seen you drive and therefore they think this is pretty easy. So
yeah,
then when they turn 15 or 16, you go get permit and you throw the keys at them and say, Johnny or Sally, here's the keys. Take the car up for a spin and let me know how it goes for you. Because you've watched me do it a ton and it seems
yeah,
pretty basic and simple. Of course, when you've been driving for years, like the two of us have, it
yeah,
is somewhat you don't even think about the process. And it's very similar, especially in those lower middle market size companies that are 500 people or less, let's say
yeah,
definitionally.
yeah,
They, a lot of times, the classic thing is they're really good at what they do. They're really good at what their job is, operationally, technically, but you put them into a leadership role, and it's very similar because it's almost like you're throwing the car keys at them when you've given them no lessons around
yeah,
leadership.
yeah. And just because they're great at a an operational function or an aspect of their job doesn't automatically indicate they're going to be a great manager, leader, coach, mentor, all those things that are parts of taking that next step.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
That's in some cases there's a huge liability risk.
yeah,
And in some cases too, the biggest challenge, especially in those companies that are like, I don't know, 100, people, a lot of times they were promoted from their peer rank and they're
yeah.
promoted now they have to manage these people.
Yeah, that they go out for happy hour on Friday afternoons with.
Exactly. And these are their
Yeah,
fishing buddies and golf buddies, and
yeah,
their
yeah,
kids play in the same softball team
yeah.
or baseball team.
All of a sudden, the
And
dynamic changes.
yes, exactly. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden, I have to give you some pretty challenging news and constructive feedback
yeah,
that you're not really that good at your job. And some of them are like, nobody likes conflict.
yeah.
But in a lot of cases, they're like, I can't do this because this is somebody I've known for
Sure.
years.
Yeah, it's
And
really
this is
hard.
really tough. So it's a whole different world when you move into one of those managerial slash leadership roles.
Yeah. The other thing that, and I'm somewhat familiar with your process. We have clients that are obviously that are HR Catalyst clients as well, and there's many aspects to HR that I don't think people think of as HR. And one you just touched on is leadership training and leadership enablement. Um, I think a lot of people think of HR as, well, we have all these mandated things we have to do for employees. We have to provide benefits, we have to do reviews, we have to do this, we have to do that. It goes way beyond that. Obviously, the management of recruiting, um, um, talent development, succession planning is one you brought up that, again, that I was terrible at. And the other things are, there's just many aspects of it. And where do you, I imagine that you touch on pretty much all of them within the book, but where have you seen in that small mid-market that the biggest challenge seems to come in?
Wow, great question. I would say one of the biggest challenges, and I've had in my business since 2013, so 13 years give or take.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think a lot of it is it really goes back into I'll kind of hit a strategic one that I say is a major gap, which is succession planning. I think successions planning is tough. I did succession planning at Pepsi, and it was a brutal, eye-opening. put the gloves on and bring up painful things about people that were like, we need to exit this person and we need to figure out an exit strategy for them.
Oh, oh,
To where when you take a company that's, multiple 100,000 employees is global,
yeah.
that's one thing because of course the people in the room don't know these people that well.
Right, right.
To your point earlier that you brought up, which is really good, is that you know these people.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot
and
harder
in a lot of
conversation when they're friends and
Right. And
yeah.
then the biggest challenge too is that, which I think a lot of companies, and I think part of the specialty of what Mastery Partners does, is that a lot of people who are, who have been, this is their baby, this is the company they grew, and now maybe it's a $25 million company. Sometimes they think they're going to continue to work there forever
Yeah.
and they're 58, they're 62, they're 67, whatever age where they're kind of in that latter, the latter stages of their career. And they don't think anything is going to happen health-wise. They think they're going to have the same kind of motivational, the gas in the tank they do
Uh-huh.
today.
Yep.
And so a lot of times, why do I even need to do succession planning? Because I'm just going to continue to run the business. The next day they'll bury me. I'm going to have a funeral and I'm going to be
Yeah.
gone. And so I think some of them, it's a really hard, it's almost like a very real conversation they don't want to have.
Yeah. It's almost like writing your will, or
R-
any kind of estate planning.
Right,
This what's missing in this picture? Well, you are because this is for when you're not there, so
right, right.
so
And I think that's a big part of what when you start doing it, it becomes much more real. They know in
mhm.
the back of their mind, they've got this little person screaming at them saying, we've got to do this. This,
Yeah.
this is the right thing to do for the ongoing concern of the business.
Yep.
Even if you're looking at selling the business and having an exit strategy and transaction, the company who's looking at you to possibly purchase you, they want to understand the succession plan.
Sure.
Because if
Well,
you
and it's
disappear and sorry, I was just going to say, if you
yeah,
disappear and you're the guy who runs all the sales and brings in 70% of the revenue,
yeah,
and you disappear, your company's going to be a lot less valuable than
yeah,
if you have three people who are lined up to move into your role, and several of them have they have some sales goals and objectives in
yeah.
their job description and the
Sure.
goals they have set up for them.
Yeah, that goes back to at the outset when we talked about there are value detractors, and obviously having no succession plan in place at each level, really. I mean, not just the business owner, but senior management, even middle management. If an outside party is looking at that company, it's a lot nicer story to tell when say for every significant job within this company, we've got a person in waiting that's being groomed to take over that position,
Right.
potentially, and again, so that there is a plan because you never know what's going to happen. People leave, they come, they go. They
Hmm.
said they wanted to do this. They started doing it, decided it wasn't what they wanted to do. There's always those challenges, and so on.
Right,
The
right. And I bring up an example in the book. Well, it's a real life situation. When I was at Texas Instruments, the CEO of Texas Instruments, Jerry Junkins,
yeah,
very fit runner. I think he was 56 and he was on a business trip over to Germany and he died.
yeah, I remember that. I remember that occasion actually.
Yeah. So, and if they didn't have succession planning, they would have probably been like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what do we do now? And so
That's
they
a
made a
multi-billion dollar corporation at that point with, yeah. And he was such a thought leader for that company too. I mean, he was the driver.
Right. He was in that
So,
chair for a long time, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
it was very, yeah, I'm sure it was very tumultuous,
yeah,
what behind the scenes, which was way above my pay grade.
yeah.
But they came out quickly, and then they announced the new president CEO,
Hmm.
and the business continued,
Yeah,
and the business continued to do very well. And sure, did they miss a beat? Absolutely, but
yeah,
for the
yeah,
most part organizations, and it doesn't matter if your organization is 100 people, 150 people.
yeah,
You've got to have successors, and I say plural,
yeah,
for those key positions. And then you've also, another big component of that is also those diamonds in the rough.
yeah, yeah,
Who are those 30 somethings?
Yeah.
who are waiting in the wings that you need to, first of all, you need to retain them.
Yep.
And secondly, you need to be able to groom it. You need to start grooming them and have a really robust development plan for them. When they're, if you identify them at 35 and they're a rock star, if you don't, and you've probably seen it time and time again too,
Yeah.
if you don't groom them and challenge them, it's almost like a racehorse, you know. If
Yeah.
if this
Yeah.
racehorse, you take them to the county fair and you have them kind of tooling around and doing pony rides, the horse is going to act up because this horse was bred to run.
Yeah. He's not, that's what he's been designed to do. It's funny
Yep.
you should say that. I'll tell a personal story. My son's in that position right now. So he joined a company a few years ago in the semiconductor business.
Hmm.
So all those companies are booming. Let's put it that
Hmm.
way. And it is an up and down business, but it is, the trend is high and to the right, for pretty much
Hmm.
all the time. And he was selected just, I think, less than a year ago. He said there's a basically they call it a management training track. He's a manager, he's a product manager at this point, but he's got some great management experience. He has military background and so on. So he's looking at it and he said, yeah, they have this program and they pull people from all aspects of the company, from manufacturing, production, engineering, HR, sales, marketing, finance, everything, and they build these kind of cadres or teams, and we meet as a group, so we get to know each other and we get to work with each other, and they give us scenarios to plan, work on, and it is very much, this is the next tier of leadership within the company, and that they're working hard to retain those folks and keep them interested. And this is a $22 billion company, so that, I mean, it's to get people to understand and meet people from across the world that are working at the company and in different aspects, and give them that perspective. And I think, man, that's a mark, to me, that's a mark of a great company that really thinks through, the succession plan, the pipeline development kind of things.
Right. That's it. And that's part of what the challenge is, I think, with the companies that we interface with, that lower middle market world.
Hmm.
Because for a company that's a billion dollar plus company, they have these resources. At Pepsi, I probably knew 5% of the HR people at Pepsi.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was actually I wasn't in Frito-Lay in Dallas. I was actually in the IT division of PepsiCo.
yeah, yeah,
And I knew 5, 10 people over at the Frito side, and we were about 3 miles away just because we never interfaced though with
sure,
them.
yeah,
But and they probably had a handful of people who did succession planning and pipeline development. But that's where I would say the value proposition for a company that's growing
yeah,
is, and part of that's that whole foundation of the book is you've got to be able to set some foundational processes around your HR function. Just like you do in sales and
sure,
marketing, operations, finance, you all have documented you do
yeah.
month-end close, you do quarterly close, you do year-end close.
There's
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 always going to
there's
be things that are happening
processes
in
and KPIs
operations,
attached to those, right? And all that
you
kind of
know?
stuff.
And most of them they see this black box of HR,
Yeah.
and
Just keep me out of
ironically,
jail, keep me
that's
out of the court, it's
yeah,
just
and part of the title of the book, is like, well, it's your biggest expense. Your people by
yeah,
far in any business is going to be your people. Your
yeah,
largest cost is going to be baked around your people and all the ancillary cost around your people, the benefits,
yep,
maybe 401k match, profit sharing. That's it's a big nut.
yep,
And a lot of organizations, unfortunately, they kind of take their people for granted.
yeah,
And when they leave, that's okay. We leave, we'll just go get another one. It's almost like a widget. And I'm like, well, no, people aren't widgets. And if you treat them like a
yeah,
widget, then, you're probably going to underperform consistently
yeah.
on a financial basis.
And I've had this conversation with several business owners, and it's, on one hand, I'm kind of singing that song to them. Okay, that part of HR is every position in this company needs to be identified. We need to document what the position is, what it does, how it fits in the organization, what the compensation levels are for that, what is an ideal persona of a person to hold that position. Where do they come from? Where do they go from here? That kind of thing. So all the things that I know that are in this book, actually. So,
Yeah.
um, but in many cases, they're going like, yeah, but you're talking about like interchangeable parts. That if I have this position all identified, then I can plug people into that position, and they can become successful fairly soon because I've laid out what the KPIs are, how it's supposed to work, and all that. But they look at it as, but that's Bill's position. Bill's always done that for us, and there's no need to look for another Bill because we have Bill, and it's this is
Right,
what we,
sure.
so, and it's getting past that and just saying, yeah, we don't treat people as widgets, but we do have to identify everybody's position, what they do. Maybe they're doing things that they really don't want to do and aren't very good at, but they just
Mhm.
ended up with that thing. And now the assumption is because they execute it well that they love to do that, and we're going to give them more of that. So I mean, it's that's the puzzle for me. It is so many moving parts.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe you would touch this on the book. Have you applied AI to the HR puzzle?
It's kind of funny. I don't think it's probably, I don't know if it's a miss or not, but
Yeah.
I didn't really, I'm of that same, I'm in that generation, honestly,
Yeah.
of where AI still scares me to death.
It can
So
build you a shopping list. You're really happy. So it's
yes,
like,
exactly. So
yeah,
so I don't really, within the HR function,
yeah,
I know some of the things that are out there industry wise in HR. I would say it's still well, AI, you can argue
yeah,
it's not in its infancy, it's been around for years.
yeah, it does.
Um, but I didn't really touch on AI. I know that some organizations that are much larger do
Right.
use, but the challenge that you see there, even with like recruiting,
Yeah.
with AI and some of the things you can build with AI and the agents there, there definitely is a loss of some real key candidates will fall out of your process.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
That would be a big concern for me. That,
right.
particularly if you're a small team and every team member is quite important, and a bad hire or a mishire is gonna hurt you a lot. And
Yes.
to me, that depending on a computer to choose that person for me, put it, bluntly, it would
Mhm.
be
Sure.
hard. So,
Right,
yeah,
exactly. And I
yeah,
think that that's where, and of course, though, if you're doing Ericsson or Pepsi type
yeah,
of
yeah,
volume, and you're not hiring one person at a time, you're hiring
yeah,
100 people at a time.
yeah.
Sure,
Well,
if
yeah,
for the sake of efficiency, and we do a little bit of recruiting. It's not a core expertise of ours, but we do some recruiting, and I think we do it very well. But we're just old school.
yeah, yeah,
We look at resumes, we will interview people, we do
yeah,
phone screens with them before they ever get to a client.
yep,
And our success rate, and we've done HR accounting, we've done some leadership and operations positions. So we get a little bit out of our core expertise, but if you can again, recruiting is a process.
yep,
So if you can ask the right questions and make sure you get that ideal candidate
yeah.
profile from the client, you could be we will our success rate is pretty darn good.
I'm gonna
So
say you
it's
can get pretty far down the road just with those things that, again, as a business owner, I struggled with. I and I think I often made the age-old mistake of hiring people that were like me. You know,
sure, it's like
you
why
kind of
not?
like, okay, I really like this guy. We could hunt and fish together, or we could, play golf or whatever. And he'll fit in great. So
Right.
it's like,
It goes back to, good or bad, you can say if Jack Welch was an iconic leader, and I think he was by all standards,
yeah,
the Jack Welch model, hire people who are smarter than you and think differently than you.
yeah, yeah,
A highly functional team, you
yeah,
may look at them from the outside. If you're sitting there as a Martian on the wall listening in,
yeah,
they may fight like cats and dogs.
yeah,
But, you want to stay away from groupthink
yeah,
because there's a lot
yeah.
of cases with groupthink that turned out very badly
Yeah,
with
I've read a
examples of,
lot about Welch. So my dad worked for GE, so that was part
oh
of it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
uh, but it was Yeah, he didn't earn the name Neutron Jack for no reason, but
No, but you know,
but he was brilliant in many ways. So
right, you know, during his time there in his tenure, you know, the company
yeah,
did extremely well, and they needed to pivot, and they
yep,
did some different things along the way. But you know, you take a GE or a Pepsi,
yeah,
you know, they generate leaders. You know, one
yeah,
of the things
yeah.
I'd say Pepsi CEOs love to be quoted on. I said, if they ask you a question, what's you're most proud of? I would imagine 95% of them would say it's the talent that we groom and develop here.
Yep, yep,
Same with the GE, or you know, nowadays it could be like a Tesla or an Apple.
sure.
You know, some
Yeah.
of these more high-tech
Google has
companies.
spawned a lot of people in a lot of businesses, and
Right,
things like
just
that.
because they know if you could work there and
Yeah,
thrive there, they
yeah,
know you have the right stuff,
yeah,
some of those core competencies that are really a driving
yep,
successful person. And so a lot of those folks can punch their ticket and move, but they move around
sure.
almost as will, because once they see that,
Yeah,
when I was still in my corporate days, everybody would talk about Pepsi. You know,
yep,
who did you work for? What did you
yeah,
do? Because they would just
yeah,
know it's one of those companies that
yeah,
is an extremely well-run, hard-driving company. And even if you get in the door there,
yep,
you're probably, you know, you're probably better than average from a performance standpoint, because they're looking for the. And I had a weird blend of skills, change management, and I also had HR, which is what they needed in the role, because we went through a transformational change when I was at Pepsi. That I was
sure.
one of the HR folks who kind of was involved in that process.
So so I imagine the book is really aimed at that small to mid-market business leader. Is that true?
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so. I'd say it's really targeted, you know, companies that are 100 million and below
Yeah, perfect.
would be kind of that really that target, just because that's the world I live in, and I've actually
Mhm.
lived in this world now for about 20 years.
Yeah.
So about 7, 8 years prior to me breaking out and starting HR Catalyst. So actually most of my experience, it was surprising when I wrote the book, I did the math and I was like, geez, I've actually did most of my life now, my professional life has been spent in that lower middle market
Yeah.
sized
Yeah.
organization, less than $1 billion in revenue. And most of the companies now we deal with are maybe a little bit less than 100 million in revenue. Occasionally we'll get above that, but
Yeah.
typically, you know, that 20 to 50 million,
Yep.
20 to 80 million dollar companies is kind of our sweet spot.
Yeah, and that maps obviously to where we are as well. And it's interesting. I think there's tremendous value that you bring to the table in that having been through that corporate experience. And it's hard to replicate that. I mean, you can't once you gain that level of experience and then bring that down to that lower mid market. That's fantastic because if you grew up from a mom and pop company and went upward, you've never seen the big processes and the way things are done at the corporate level. And that's a reason, for example, Good to Great was written. That
Mhm.
famous
Right.
book is taking all those successful corporate stories and then making them available to everyone.
Right.
So
And it's amazing the correlation there.
yeah,
You know, a lot of those good to great companies that were really industry leaders in their respective
mhm.
industries, they still had a lot of those common building blocks
Yeah, yeah,
that really made them successful. So I kind of go back to what I said earlier. It's not rocket science,
yeah,
but it's not rocket science, but it can be very hard to do, because
yeah,
you have to be very intentional. And that's
yep,
why I think, you know, when I talk to organizations or a prospect about a people strategy, some of them look at me like I've got like three heads.
yeah,
You know, what are you talking about? You know, we don't have a people strategy. We have people,
yeah.
but
We
then
try to
it
keep
goes
them. We have
right. We
pizza
try
on
to keep
Fridays,
them,
so it's
and
like,
every once in a while we lose some people, and sometimes we lose a really good one. We don't know
yep,
why we lost them. And sometimes we see our sales starting to stagnate and our top and bottom line starting to stagnate. And then I'm going to peel that onion back a couple of layers and say, well, you know, I think there's some of the stuff that we do that
yep,
could be helpful for you, just because you really don't have any strategic there's nothing strategic about what you're trying to do with your
Yeah.
people. You treat them in a reactive way, and it's a
Yeah.
very transactionally focused, which is most companies that are, less than $100 million. It's
Yeah.
pretty transactional about what they do. When you do something, when there's an issue and a crisis, you go you put your fire hat on, you go extinguish the
Yeah.
fire, but they
Well,
never get in front of
and
it.
it's
So,
particularly owner-led businesses, which the majority of our clients are. The owner was an expert at something before they started the business. They might have been an engineer, they might have been a finance whiz, they may have been a top sales producer. They may be super in operations. They may be an operational excellence person. Um, Probably they weren't an HR whiz.
yeah.
So unless it's you starting your company, you would be the exception. So in that, to me, like you said, that black box, that's very true. I mean, it is an area that everybody knows that I really need to be better at that. But it's just, I'm not going to be able to, I'm trying to run a company. I don't have the time to learn all the ins and outs of HR to make that a strategic advantage for my company. I just need to get by. And
Right.
what I think the beauty of what you guys do is that you treat it as the strategic advantage.
Right.
And I think you hit on it earlier, and obviously it's in the title. I mean, when people start looking at their income statement, I mean, people are a big expense,
You're right.
probably the largest expense, unless you're the odd duck of a company that doesn't have a whole lot of people.
Right.
It's and certainly one of the toughest challenges to manage. So
Right.
can't think that this book could come out at a better time. It's a perfect perfect setup.
Yeah.
I really look forward to. I think you've indicated we might get a preview of it right before publishing. I can't wait to read it and review it and hand it out to everybody I know. So
Great. Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate the kind words and
yeah,
appreciate knowing you since we've known each other for a number of years. So yeah, your professional support and your friendship too. So yeah, this has been a
yeah,
definitely an insightful conversation.
yeah, definitely. And you can't look. So say the title one more time because I know it's a mouthful. So
It's a mouthful, yeah. So people are your profit,
people are your
and the subtitle is Transform Your Biggest Expense into Your Biggest Asset.
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yep, and it'll go live on Amazon on April the 30th.
April 30th. I'll have to earmark that. Well,
Yep,
Mark,
there you
thanks so
go.
much. I can't thank you enough for coming to share with us,
Sure.
and certainly we look forward to the launch and look forward to continuing engagements with HR Catalyst. And I'm sure where can people find you? What's the easiest way to get a hold of Mark Mitford?
Sure, yeah. The easiest way is, well, our website is hrcatalystconsulting.com.
Okay.
People can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn.
Oh,
And so it's just Mark. And it's amazing how many people can't spell my last name, but it's just MIT as in Tom, Ford. So
FORD is
Mitford.
in truck, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It's T's and truck, exactly. T's and Tom. So, and then we also do have a YouTube channel,
Oh,
which is under the same name as the company, HR Catalyst Consulting. And then lastly, we do have a podcast channel. So that is our podcast handler channel is actually HR Problem Solver.
oh, excellent.
So we have
Nice.
that out there on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all the
Oh,
major
super.
podcast, media that's out there. So
Well,
you
I'd
can link
urge
with us
our viewers and
separately.
listeners to get a hold of Mark and get a hold of HR Catalyst because they bring, I think, enterprise level solutions to the lower mid market, which I think is tremendous. And what a value driver as you're building your business and profit driver. So again, this is the Maximized Business Value podcast. It's a conversation that's designed specifically for serious entrepreneurs and business owners that want to drive value within their business. Um, Everybody exits their business sooner or later. We're not focused on exit. We're not focused on people that recapitalizing or anything like that. We just want to help business owners increase the value of their business so that they have all the options open to them. It's whatever they want to do. May want to grow their company. They may want to pass it down to the next generation. They may want to pass it down to their employees. We've got several engagements that we've done that with. So with that, Mark, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Okay, thanks, Dave. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.